Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 680. And joining me, as always, is my co-host, Nathan Hawthorne. Nathan, how are you?
I'm doing great. We just had an awesome weekend of football. Every weekend that has football is a great weekend. What a blessing. It's already halfway over for you guys, so go ahead and let that panic sink in. Like the regular season's already halfway over.
Yeah.
And then we won't have football anymore and we'll be sad. But nonetheless, we're here today.
I want to acknowledge something real quick. Normally I do 2 episodes during a week. I do the one with you on Tuesday. It comes out Tuesday. Then I do one Thursday night. After Thursday Night Football comes out Friday morning. I didn't do one last week. I've been dealing with some stuff at work. Nathan knows about it. I'm not going to talk about it. And then tomorrow morning, I fly to Dallas for 4 days for a conference. So there will also not be a second episode this week. So 2 weeks in a row, no second episode. That's not going to be the normal thing. That's just a weird 2-week period because of my job. I apologize.
Is this Thursday the first Nathan solo episode?
Dude, if you want to, no. I will facilitate that. I'm fine. I'll be in a hotel room in Dallas, and I was actually thinking like I'll record an episode by myself in my hotel room, but I have to share a hotel room with my coworker, and I was like, damn it, that'd be really weird. I'm not doing that. Like, no way. I refuse to do that. So, yeah, I just I want to ask you first. This is kind of a fun. I don't know what. Not in the script here.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to say about Monday Night Football. It was kind of an ugly game between 2 bad football teams. I was surprised the Rams lost because people talk about the Rams as if they are a potential Super Bowl team, like they're going to resurge and have a better start to their, kind of a second coming to their season. The Dolphins beat the Rams 23-15 on Monday Night Football. I really don't know if it's worth talking about beyond just mentioning that it happened. But do you have anything you want to say about that? I want to acknowledge it, but I don't have a whole lot to say there. It's a 3-6 Dolphins team beating a 4-5 Rams team. It's not very relevant in my opinion, even though it's a primetime game.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking, honestly. You had the Rams who kind of were on a hot streak here, right? You beat the Raiders, you beat Minnesota, and all of a sudden you had this offensive explosion that looked amazing. You had Cooper Kupp, you had Puka Nacua back, and then it turned to, okay, against Seattle, we won, but things didn't look weird. And things got even weirder this week against Miami, who's a team that's struggling. But, Miami has gotten a little bit healthier. Obviously, they got Tua back for a second week. Zach Sealer, he came back as a defensive tackle. That was huge for them. And I thought Ramsey had a great night as well out at corner. Like you said, it was an ugly game. And again, that I thought was going to have a ton of offensive explosion. That wasn't the case. Both teams were getting after the quarterback. Both QBs were just under duress the entire game. And I think that hurt the production.
Yeah, I just go back to, I wonder if either one of these teams is going to be in contention by the end of the year. I guess the NFC West is technically up for grabs still. Like we're waiting. Arizona's, in the lead right now. If you look at the AFC West, you've got Arizona at 6-4 in the lead, followed by the 49ers at 5-4. Then the Rams and Seahawks are both at 4-5. It's not over, but it's hard to imagine this Rams team really ramping it up and winning a playoff game and getting back in contention, in my opinion. But time will tell.
Yeah, and they've still got plenty of division games on their schedule. Yeah. I don't trust the Cardinals as of yet, although they're improving. I don't really trust the Niners right now, although they looked much better, not complete, but just offensively. I felt like they were functioning okay last week. And then Seahawks are, to me, a little bit dead in the water, but you never know. You can get a good game out of them. So it's going to be chaos, but Dolphins won the game tonight. They controlled the game. They scored on a number of their possessions. Some of them I thought should have been touchdowns, but you walked away with a field goal. You kept putting points on the board, and that ended up being the killer for the Rams. That last drive, obviously they needed 2 scores, and they weren't able to do that. So it wasn't the high-flying offense that we expected from the Dolphins, but they put points up on the board, and they got out with a win. Great for them.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. Use PrizePicks while you watch NFL games this fall because making picks makes watching games more engaging, and you could turn something like $5 into $50. PrizePicks offers quick and easy deposits. You can even use Apple Pay. To put your skills to the test in daily fantasy, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. I want to talk about Sunday Night Football, and I want to start by telling you a story, actually. And I know people get mad at me. They hate when I talk about my girlfriend. I don't care. Suck my whatever. Like, screw you guys. I want to tell this because I was shocked. We had like dinner with my mom last night, and I record every NFL game. And I'm tired. I'm late. Like, Molly feels kind of sick. And I knew at some point last night I was going to watch Sunday Night Football, just expecting to start it late, like 9 p.m. Mm-hmm. We get home from dinner. Molly's feeling sick. Her favorite show. I'm like, I like it. I thought, hey, like, do you want to watch your favorite show? And she goes, actually, no, I really want to see what happened with the Detroit Lions. And I was like, am I in an alternate timeline? Like, how did this happen to me? And so I got to watch the Lions game with Molly, and like the way it went down was so fun. If you don't know, I think everyone would. The Lions beat the Houston Texans 26-23. And that's a weird game to watch on a recording because I faithfully watch without spoiling the game. But you're like watching Jared Goff throw 5 interceptions and it's getting worse and worse. And you're like, but they're not out of it. Are they actually gonna win this game? And it's a weird game to like, I intentionally didn't spoil, but I wanted to because I'm like, am I gonna be really sad at this outcome as I'm rooting for the Lions, hoping they're gonna pull it out? And I gotta say, I can't believe maybe this is the best place to start this, actually. You know, Jared Goff was 15 for 30 passing, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. This game has to end any conversation of Jared Goff in MVP candidacy. I know I was probably the only person on planet Earth suggesting maybe he should be mentioned there, but I will now politely just never mention his name again, because to win a game where your quarterback is that bad shows you cannot be the most valuable player. Like, your team around you is so good you can win even when you're terrible. And it's hard to consider a player who can have 5 interceptions and play the way he did and still win an MVP candidate, in my opinion. What do you make of last night's game? It was fun. We can talk about CJ Stroud, but I was shocked the Lions found a way to pull it out despite 5 interceptions from Jared Goff.
Here's my deal with Goff and the MVP discussion. I wouldn't take him out of it so quickly, to be honest with you. Sometimes you just have a weird game. The energy was weird. They were in Houston. Roof was open. Not that that necessarily matters, but sure. It was just a weird game. But when it mattered, the final three drives of the game, touchdown, and then you put your field goal kicker in position to give yourself a chance. Right now, the kicker made 2 50-plus yarders. He gets the game ball to me, but who else gets the game ball is the Detroit Lions defensive line and the front seven as a whole. They were absolutely lights out. Mixon, a guy who's averaging over 100 yards rushing a game, he had 25 carries for only 46 yards. That is inefficient by any and every standard and metric in the NFL. Now take that over to CJ Stroud, a guy who I was kind of talking about a sophomore slump for him this year, perhaps doing a little bit too much, looking at things as though, hey, I did really, really well last year. This year, I have to do even better. I have to look for the bigger throw. Nico Collins is out. Stephon Diggs is out. Who else am I missing? No, Tank Dell is back, and they have Dalton Schultz. John Mechie started to light it up a little bit. It just looks like he wants to make a few more plays that are necessary. Mike McDaniels actually said it tonight. Sometimes the best play you can make is just throw an incompletion, throw it away. And I feel like we need to see Stroud do that more. Again, Lions, their defensive line kept them in the game, it prevented the Texans offense from getting going. That was great to see. And then offensive production from Houston, we just didn't get anything from them. And that was kind of the basis of the game. But again, that defensive line, who, by the way, is now adding Za'Darius Smith. Wow. They are going, this is a very, very serious team, top to bottom now. As long as they can get pressure on the quarterback and not expose their back end, they're going to be really good.
It might be weird to say this, but I actually walked away encouraged by the Houston Texans. They're 7-3.
Encouraged.
And they just played. Hear me out. Here's why.
Yeah.
Because what happened last night, there were mistakes made by CJ Stroud, but they're fixable. And you just watched a team without Nico Collins, without Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is not coming back this year, but without your top 2 receivers, really go toe-to-toe and challenge the Detroit Lions, who I think is arguably the best team in football. And I go, man, when they get Nico Collins back, that's going to make a huge impact. And when you watch CJ Stroud, you see a quarterback who's trying to make every play work and
Mm,
frankly holding onto the ball far too long. And I took a note down last night, like the longer CJ Stroud holds onto the football, the
mm.
better it is for the Lions defense. He's at his best when he's decisive. He's getting the ball out of his hands quickly. And there were times where I thought he wasn't pulling the trigger. Now, some of that's good coverage. Some of that's just, dude, you got to take a check down. You got to just, hey, take 4 yards when it's there and stop trying to make every throw into a big completion. And it felt
Mhm.
like we were watching a quarterback who was pressing. Again, with the context of, I don't have Nico Collins. I don't have Stephon Diggs. I'm trying to throw home runs all the time. But he was taking some shots that were unnecessary last night. I mean, you could say the same about Jared Goff. But I thought CJ Stroud specifically held onto the ball far longer than he needed to. But he's had moments, you talk about a sophomore slump, he's had moments this year where he's looked incredible for stretches of time during certain games. And even last night on Sunday Night Football, there were early parts of that game where you're like, man, he looks incredible. He's just on time, getting the ball out right, exactly when he needs to. But
That's
go ahead.
that to me. That's it right there. Is it's the inconsistency, and to me, it's not just him. And yes, you can blame injuries. Everybody has injuries in the NFL. It's just the nature of the game. Joe Burrow didn't have T. Higgins. Not quite apples to apples there, but you get the point. Outside of New England, all of their wins have not looked good. The Texans are a team that plays to the level of their opponent, and that can be great. When you're playing a team like Green Bay or playing a team like Buffalo or Minnesota, or that can be bad when you are letting mediocre teams hang around. You're letting Indiana hang around. You're getting beat by the Jets. You're going toe to toe with Jacksonville. Like I need to see more from the Texans in terms of their consistency across the board. Is getting Nico Collins back, fully healthy going to help? No doubt that's going to help the offense change a lot, open up Tank Dell, get Dalton Schultz more involved. If Mechie continues to grow after the performance he just had, that's going to be positive. But to me, they haven't looked consistent all year, and that's why I'm not super optimistic.
I want to make a correction. I said they're 7-3. I was actually thinking of Washington. Washington 7-3 in my notes. Houston is 6-4. You look
Correct.
ahead for them though. Dallas, Tennessee, Jaguars, Dolphins, Kansas City, Ravens, Titans. Like a lot of those games are winners, and I think this is a playoff team. They're going to win their division pretty comfortably, in my opinion. The question is, can they win a playoff game? Can they beat a Buffalo? Can they beat a Ravens? Can they beat someone like? Can they beat like? I don't think they beat Pittsburgh in a wild card round, for example. Um, I think they're probably what's going to happen. Actually, they're going to be a team that wins their division. They're like the number 4 seed. They're going to host Pittsburgh and lose most likely. I think is exactly how the year is going to play out for them. Unless Nico Collins comes back and really changes things, which is also possible. It's possible that adds an element of what's going to it's going to have to add is decisiveness from CJ Stroud. It's going to have to give him
Yes.
better matchups and allow him to get the ball out quicker and on time. But I understand from his perspective, holding on a ball for a long time, not having matchups you like, not trusting maybe the matchups you have.
Yeah.
They really are lacking a number 1 outside receiver at this point of the year. And that's very understandable to me.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't have the guy that takes the top off. And not only can Nico take the top off, but he can come underneath. He can come in the mid range. He can go sideline. He's a truly complete wide receiver who blossomed last year and is really starting to come into his own, barring that injury. If he comes back and, like you said, creates more decisiveness for CJ Stroud, I would also love to see them get Dalton Schultz more involved. There's a guy that you paid some good money to. He was very involved last year in the offense. Get that guy going. Get him moving. And I would love to see that for the Texans in the next couple of weeks. 4 winnable games. And then you've got Kansas City, which technically is winnable, but also Voodoo Magic says it's unwinnable. But yeah, Texans have a chance here to go on a run. But back to the Lions. That's the marking of a good team. When things are going so opposite way of you and you've got no momentum and you're trying everything and it's not clicking, but you're able to buckle down for the last 3 drives and get yourself a win. That is impressive. I am so thoroughly impressed with the Lions, and more so the defense than anything. That's been injured, that's been down and out, that's been criticized, and they just keep showing up week after week. Brian Branch, oh my goodness. He's playing out of his mind right now. This team is special.
Got to give a shout out to Carlton Davis, too. 2 interceptions. Watching the game was so funny in the third quarter. First possession of the third quarter.
Everybody got an interception that game.
Dude, you hear Dan Campbell's talking on the interview that they're playing. It's like pre-recorded, and he's talking, saying, we got to get turnovers in the second half. Right as he says that, Carlton Davis jumps a pass, gets an interception. You're like, wow, that's crazy. And then later he recovers on a deep ball into the end zone. He like makes this crazy play across the field to recover and go pick it off from CJ Stroud. He threw the ball kind of late. Shout out to him. And then shout out to Jake Bates, man, the kicker. Everyone I think knows this story, but a guy who was literally a brick salesman like 18 months ago, played in the UFL, kind of worked his way back to his career, was not a kicker in college. He kicked kickoffs, but not field goals, and actually was cut at one point by the Houston Texans. For him to kick a 58-yard field goal, then a 52-yard field goal to, basically give them the victory. In fact, did give them the victory is really, really cool. And it's just a cool story. And by the way, he made them by like the thinnest margin. It was he was trying to give me a heart attack.
A combined 2 inches away on both kicks from being instead of the most loved man in Detroit, the most hated man in Detroit.
Did you see the video? There was a video of people on a plane watching, and like the lady was doing an announcement during the field goal, and they're like, "No!"
Oh yeah, they were telling her to quiet down so they could finish the game. I love that. Screw air traffic safety. Like, let's just
who needs that? No, I want to say this. You mentioned it, but let's circle back to this idea that this was actually maybe a good thing for the Detroit Lions. It was a test for them. It's a story they're going to tell each other throughout the year. Like next time Jared Goff throws an interception, you can go, well, like we're going to be fine. They're going to be down at halftime and they can look each other in the eyes and go, we've been here before. We can fight back from this. Like this is actually a very, it's a story I think they're going to tell throughout the rest of this year. It's a moment that they're going to look back on in a playoff run, and whatever happens to them, it's a huge defining moment of their season that is going to be remembered and talked about and used, I think, to pull them together.
It is.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, those are the battle scars that I always talk about with teams when they get into the playoffs and they want to make these deep runs. You have to be able to handle adversity, obviously, but when extreme adversity hits, you get down multiple scores. Your offense can't get anything going, and not only can they not get anything going, they're willingly giving the ball to the other team. Craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Can you get a win? And they did. And they did that against Houston. They did that against Arizona earlier in the year, Tampa Bay earlier in the year, Minnesota as well. They have blowouts, but they've also won close games. And that's how you know that these guys really have it. Think about guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta, who last year were those centerpieces of that offense, obviously along with Gibbs and Montgomery. But those are the guys that Goff leaned on in the pass game. Those are the guys that ended up getting the touchdowns. Those core pieces that are really holding this thing together, that's who you counted on, and that's who delivered.
The Game Time app is the best place to find NBA tickets. On the Game Time app, you will find affordable tickets that are easy to buy, and here's what Game Time does for you. They've got the Game Time Picks feature, which allows for a curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and other events. They've got all-in pricing where toggling this feature shows a total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. There are seat views where you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy your ticket. Game Time has the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And on top of all that, Game Time has ticket coverage where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem with the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. NFL Week 10 was really fun. There are 3 games that really stand out to me as maybe the game of the week. I think Sunday Night Football is one of them. We'll talk about another one in a moment, but here's the second candidate for game of the week. Pittsburgh beat Washington 28-27. It was an amazing game. It was so much fun to watch. I am a self-proclaimed Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so I've got a lot to say about them. I really enjoy. I've become a Steelers fan this year for specific reasons we'll talk about someday. But I've really enjoyed following this team closely and watching them. And I want to just start actually by acknowledging Mike Tomlin's decision to switch quarterbacks to Russell Wilson. That was a gutsy move. They were winning. They were doing well. They had Justin Fields, and you could argue he's younger. Maybe he's the future of the franchise, but he made a decision to switch to Russell Wilson, and it's been an absolute home run. Russell Wilson has not been incredible, but he's been exactly what they need. He's been a game manager who makes the 2 or 3 throws a game that are exactly what you need. And he made 2 specific throws in this game. A throw over the top to George Pickens. It was an incredible touchdown catch, 50-50 ball, but thrown high enough he could adjust and go make a play. And then a touchdown pass with 2 minutes left to Mike Williams. Another rainbow ball up and over the top. That's what was missing from this offense when Justin Fields was playing quarterback for them. Those balls over the top that gave receivers a shot downfield. Russell Wilson was 14 for 28, 195 yards, 3 touchdowns, had an interception. Not a great completion percentage, not perfect on the night, but those 2 throws are the difference between 7-2 and 6-3, and that was exactly what they needed. What say you?
Yeah, those 2 plays were the difference, right? And those 2 throws are throws that Justin Fields quite literally cannot make. This was some of the criticism of Justin Fields, right? And not to get have him catch a stray here while we're praising Russ.
Yeah.
But trajectory is a big thing when you're a quarterback. And if you can't lay it out there or get the ball to turn over so that your receiver, like you said, has a chance to adjust to it, it's going to be very, very hard. Throwing everything on a line or on a rope or back shoulder. It can be really hard for guys, but learning how to get that ball to turn down, get the nose going down, and let these guys make plays, that's really special. And I thought Jaden Daniels did that as well. He does. He has at least one of those a game to Terry McLaurin, and where he makes some sort of incredible adjusting catch, and it's really special. But to me, what this game came down to was the timely throws from Russell Wilson in an elite defense. We talked about it last week. This was the first time Jaden Daniels was going to have to face a defense that truly, truly was elite. And they made him work for it. Like, yes, Jaden Daniels was able to attack different parts of the field, but he only had 1 completion over 20 yards, like air yards. And the rest, everything was in front of him, 5 to 10 yards and behind the line of scrimmage. They eliminated a 100-yard rusher in Austin Eckler. Obviously, they didn't have Brian Robinson. But in general, they made Jaden Daniels uncomfortable. And for the first time, we really, really saw him scrambling, but then not having anywhere to go with it when scrambling. And that was the difference, right? His completion percentage has been so high this year, and this was in and around 50% for this game. So a big well done to this Steelers defense. And again, great insight from Mike Tomlin to say, hey, we can probably win some games with Justin Fields, and that's not a problem. But Russell Wilson can do just that, and he can make that throw that Justin Fields simply can't. The second part to me is the Steelers had that 7-minute drive late in the game that actually ended up resulting in a fumble. That drive, again, although it was a fumble, you took the ball all the way down the field. And what you did is you kept your defense off the field and you gassed Washington's defense. The next time you got the ball back, you were able to move the ball down the field very efficiently and score after your defense got you in a three and out after only a minute of game time. So when you do things like that offensively, again, I know that they didn't score and they ultimately still had to come back and do it. That shows a lot of poise and a lot of confidence that this Steelers team has right now that they haven't had in a long time. I mean, again, they were down 17-24. And it kind of looked dead in the water, if we're being honest. Their ability to come back is something that we haven't seen from Pittsburgh in quite a few years now, and I thought was really important. But again, Russell Wilson, game-making, made the difference with those 2 throws.
We've been very critical of Arthur Smith in the past. I think we have to acknowledge he's doing a good job as offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh. I mean, it's no matter what you think, his strategy, it's working. And they are competent. They're scoring enough points. They're running the ball well. They're doing little things right. I don't always love the play calling on the goal line, but I really think, is Arthur Smith the best offensive coordinator in football? No, but this pairing with Russell Wilson and Najee Harris and this offensive line, it's working right now, and it's turning out to be a good hire. I don't think he's the best offensive coordinator in football, but this is working. And frankly, this iteration of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, can win a playoff game. If you match up at Houston in round 1 in a wild card round, you're going to win that game, even on the road in Houston. I really like this defense. I think that Russ is doing the little things they need. He's a game manager. And actually, I think Russell Wilson is exactly what we saw in this game on week 10 of the 2024 season against Washington. He's a game manager that can make those 2 or 3 throws a game. In Denver, they expected him to be everything, the entire offense. Expectations can really get you. In Pittsburgh, the expectation is different. We play great defense. We run the football. You don't need to be our entire offense. You need to manage the game, keep it close, and make those couple throws. He's perfect for that role. So I really think this Steelers team, this is not a Super Bowl contender. I don't want to be delusional here. I do think they can win a playoff game. And I am curious. We talked about this before. You kind of laughed at me when I said, I wonder if Justin Fields can still be the franchise quarterback someday. I would hope he's got the self-awareness to look at what Russell Wilson's doing and go, what is he doing? What's the little bit of his game that he has that I just wasn't bringing to the table, and can learn? Dude, sometimes you got to have a different trajectory and put the ball up in the air and let guys go make plays in 50-50 balls.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine a guy like Justin Fields, who seems to get along with Russ really, really well, not learning something from him. If you're self-aware at all, you look at what he's doing differently and go, I should probably make that adjustment to my game.
Yeah, no doubt. I do think context matters. In this 4-game win streak that they've had, it's been Las Vegas, the Jets, the Giants, and Washington. I do think is a quality win. Washington, to me, is a good team. Washington was also close to running away from this game. That touchdown at the end of the first half and then the beginning of the second half, I thought, oh shit, like they might really run away with this thing. But they'll have a great matchup with Baltimore. I'm very, very interested in that next week, and we'll kind of see where they really sit.
Yeah, the next 4 games, really the next 5 are pretty intense for them. But honestly, from here on out, let's just say it, because every game, the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Yeah, the last 8 games are crazy for them. Ravens next week, then at Cleveland, then at Cincinnati, then the Browns, then at Philly, then at Baltimore, then Kansas City at home, then Bengals again. Every one of those teams is pretty good. I know the Browns are down, but they can still beat you. They got a good defense. They're going to do stuff that make your life difficult. It's going to get real. The Steelers are 7-2 right now. I don't know. It's a gauntlet, quite frankly. You can gain a lot of respect if you beat Baltimore next week or even play them really, really well.
Yeah.
But we just saw the Bengals go toe-to-toe, lose 34-35 to that same Ravens team. Like, the Bengals are down, but they're not out. They can beat anyone. Kansas City is really good. Philly can play. Like, this is a really tough 8 games ahead for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's going to define their season because they frankly could go 0-8 in the next 8 games. I think it's unlikely, but like maybe 1-7 is not off the table, to be honest. So that's an 8-9 season and you're out. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, this next stretch is going to be really tough and define their entire season.
It's going to be tough. And like you said, they are a much better team than I was willing to give them credit for to start the year, in the preseason, etc. Right? But they've changed our minds. I think the collective minds of all football fans that they're competitive. But the difference is for them is we talked about Russell Wilson making those 1 or 2 throws. Other quarterbacks in the AFC, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, they are making not just 1 or 2 throws. They're making 6 or 7 plays a game that are truly game-changing. And so that's what you're going to run into in the playoffs. And yeah, why to me they're not a contender and maybe a wild card win.
I think the Eagles game specifically is really interesting because Russ and Jalen are actually very similar. Like, they both have that deep arcing deep ball that gives a 50-50 shot to a receiver. Like, they actually, like, Philly and Pittsburgh are very, very parallelly designed. They're not exactly parallels, but they're very similar in the way the teams are built, the type of offense they run. Like, that's a really even matchup, in my opinion, that I don't know what's going to happen. You can beat the Browns. Kansas City scares me. The Ravens scare me. Joe Burrow scares me. I think in all 3 of those matchups, the opposing team's got a better, more dynamic quarterback than Pittsburgh has, which means your defense has to make a lot of plays. And in today's NFL, my money's on an MVP level quarterback winning a game against a great defense, because the way the rules are set up in today's NFL, it's hard for defenses to win you games.
Yeah.
I think the defensive philosophy of Pittsburgh is putting them behind the times, quite frankly. Like, they're still a dynamic quarterback away from being a legit Super Bowl contender. I would love to see this Pittsburgh team with this defense have a Josh Allen, have a Lamar Jackson, because that would be, I think, a Super Bowl contending quarterback, a Super Bowl contending team.
Yeah.
They just don't have that. So I don't know what's going to happen against Cincinnati and the Ravens specifically, in Kansas City as well. When you play a dynamic quarterback, I think you're in trouble, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And I'm curious, obviously they just acquired Mike Williams, how that looks, right? Obviously, Mike Williams, your boundary receiver. George Pickens had kind of been their boundary receiver. How does Arthur Smith balance the 2 guys between the X and Z, maybe even slot position?
I will say there was a moment here, we have to talk about this. As a Steelers fan, I was screaming at the TV. 4th and 15 on your own, 15 and a half. They call it 16. I call it 15-yard line. You're backed up on your own 15-yard line. It's 4th and 15. You're on a fake punt. You throw it down the left sideline. Guy's wide open. He drops it. First of all, like, you got to catch that. But also, what are you doing running a fake punt on your own 15-yard line early in the game? By the way, when Washington's offense had not done anything, they couldn't move the football to start the game. You handed them momentum. You handed them a touchdown. You just gifted them 7 points. I thought that was an unforced error there. I really like what they got going on. The Pittsburgh Steelers special teams are awesome. And it was open, like, to their credit. It was wide open. It ended up being a great call. But you don't execute it, and it cost you dearly. And that just felt like an unforced error for no reason, backed up in your own territory in a close game when your defense has all this momentum right now. I just didn't like that call at all. I thought that was frustrating.
A horrible call. But the fact is they overcame that. They overcame a fumble and interception in back-to-back drives late in the third, early in the fourth, and they still somehow found a way to win. So whether that's Washington obviously not being able to take advantage of that and put up more points on the board, or whether that's the Steelers defense stepping up, getting the ball back into their hands of their offense, complimentary football.
And don't forget, Jane Daniels got the ball with 2 minutes and 16 seconds left, down 1 with a chance to put together a drive. The Steelers defense got a stop. They line it up on 4th and 1. They draw encroachment. They get a first down. They end the game. But Jane Daniels and Washington had multiple opportunities here at the end of this game, and frankly didn't get it done. And I mean that not as a slight, but as really actually respect to the Steelers defense, that they stepped up when they needed to. And I thought that was the mark of a great defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. How do you keep track of all your subscriptions? And can you tell me for sure how many you have and who is taking money from you each month? Have you ever canceled a subscription or discovered you were being charged for something you didn't think you should be charged for? Well, Rocket Money can help you. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps to lower your bills. I can see all of my subscriptions in one place, and if I see something I don't want, I can cancel it with a few taps. I never have to get on the phone with customer service. Plus, they'll even try to get you a refund for the last couple months of wasted money and negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you got to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year, with over $5 million saved in canceled subscriptions. So stop wasting money on things you don't use and cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/SOS. That's rocketmoney.com/SOS. rocketmoney.com/SOS. Let's go back in time. It's old news now. So, game of the week. Was it Sunday Night Football, the Lions coming back, surviving a terrible game from their quarterback and beating Houston with a last-second field goal? Was it, I thought the Steelers-Washington game was incredible, 28-27. It was really, really fun. It was dramatic. You're in the fourth quarter. You don't know who's going to win. And then, frankly, let's go all the way back to Thursday Night Football. I would argue this actually is the game of the week. It had 2 dynamic quarterbacks, both had 4 touchdowns. To start NFL Week 10, the Ravens beat the Bengals 35-34 on Thursday Night Football. Joe Burrow had 4 touchdowns. Jamar Chase had 264 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns, 11 catches. Lamar Jackson, 4 touchdowns, 290 yards. I mean, it was just a
how lucky
back
are
and
we?
forth.
How lucky are we to see that? That's so cool.
I feel like we forgot about it too. I saw so many comments all weekend, like game of the weekend. And I'm like, did you forget what we saw Thursday? How like amazing that game was? Like, and by the way, Thursday night games have not been exactly legendary for being great football games. This was a true, incredible game. The rare, great Thursday night football game.
Where's the defense? There was 0 defense played in that game. You even had Derrick Henry's ass cheeks out, but there was everything but good defense in that football game. It was, man, I don't really know how to describe it because I don't think that the Bengals played perfect. Obviously, Joe Burrow looked fantastic, but to me, 2 things stood out to me, and it was going for it on 4th down. Obviously, when you don't get it, everybody's like, oh, you shouldn't have gone for it, blah, blah, blah. I think they were in position both times to go for it. But my concern is on both 4th downs, Joe Burrow went for the big ball. He didn't go to get the first down and keep it going.
Yeah.
Right. That's one thing. And you can say whatever you want about that. But then on the 3rd downs as well, he went for the shot. If you go for the shot on third down, that tells me that, okay, you have a good play, for fourth down to go ahead and pick it up and keep the drive going. But on third and fourth down, both times, he tries to go for the deep ball. And to me, I just really felt like that was a mistake from Joe Burrow. And I'm not sure what exactly they were or weren't taking away on those plays, but I felt like Joe Burrow needed to make the play for the first down instead of going for the big shock back-breaking play. I mean, obviously he saw a look that he liked, but to me, those were the mistakes that kind of cost them the game. And then obviously you had the Chase Brown fumble, which is really what led to the Ravens' comeback, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But those fourth downs were a mistake.
There was a back-breaking throw to me. They threw a deep ball to Jermaine Burton on 4th and 2. I'm like, what are we? That's your best play? That's your best matchup? That's where the ball goes in that moment? It was, and by the way, nowhere near Jermaine Burton. It was just not a good, it wasn't a good opportunity to get a completion. I was like, that's
No.
a weird pull of the trigger by Joe Burrow. We have to have, we can circle back, but I want to hang on this for a second real quick. The way the game ended was, the Bengals score a touchdown with 38 seconds left. They're down 34-35. They go for 2. They go for the win. They didn't get it. Actually, I thought you could argue they got really wildly screwed over by a missed holding call that where, Mike Gesicki gets like tackled. I don't, look, it's so far gone now. I'm not going to argue with the refs. I'm not going to argue with the call. I just want to say, I think that was absolutely the right call. You're playing Lamar Jackson. You got 38 seconds left. You want to take the win now. You don't want to give Lamar the ball back and go to overtime and risk what we saw happen to Tampa Bay against Kansas City a couple weeks ago. You want to just go for the jugular and get the win now. I thought that was absolutely the right move. Did you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely was the right move. Anytime you can control your destiny, you have to, right? I don't think they needed to as much as Tampa Bay needed to. Tampa Bay was man down, hand down, fighting for their lives. You have to go for 2 there. Bengals, I think they could have gone to overtime and maybe taken their chances if they wanted to, but I still support the 2-point decision. But again, that fumble by Chase Brown, immediately after that, the Ravens had 4 straight touchdown drives, and that was killer. You were up 21-7. You were driving. You had an opportunity to put the game away. And now all of a sudden, Ravens, boom, new life. They score after that, and then they just don't stop scoring. And again, like you follow that up with a fumble and then turnover on downs. Just really, really tough game for the Bengals. And that's the deal. Like, these are small margins in the NFL. A couple decisions here or there ultimately ended up being the result of the game.
I walked away from this game though feeling like the Bengals, they're 4-6, but they can beat anybody in the NFL, in my opinion, quite clearly.
They're a scary team.
Yeah,
they don't even have T. Higgins.
You play Pittsburgh. Like, this is a team that lost by a thin hair to Kansas City. They've now lost by 1 to Baltimore. When the Steelers play them twice later this year, like I'm not certain at all that's a victory for Pittsburgh. In fact, I'm leaning towards they're probably going to lose to Cincinnati because Joe Burrow is a better, more dynamic quarterback than Russell Wilson. And Lou Anarumo is a great defensive coordinator. So I'm really, even though the Bengals are 4-6, don't count them out. They're really dangerous. They can beat anyone. And I think they still got a shot at a wild card spot, to be totally honest. Like they could absolutely leapfrog like a team like Pittsburgh and take their playoff positioning, in my opinion.
Yeah, they do have Pittsburgh still twice on the schedule, and that's provided they can catch up in the wins category, right?
Sure.
They've got to catch up to the Ravens. They've got to catch up to the Steelers. And obviously, if you win, both of those games that you have remaining against the Steelers, that helps your chances. 2 wins for you, none for them. But again, you still have to catch up in the win column, and that's what's going to make it really, really tough because their destiny ultimately is not in their hands.
Yeah. Well, if you look ahead, like right now, Cincinnati's the number 9 seed in the AFC. They just got to leapfrog the Colts and Denver to get to the 7 seed. Like, that's not, they're in striking distance. Denver's 5-5. The Colts are 4-6 ahead of them. Like, they are not out at all from that last wild card spot, in my opinion. And again, Pittsburgh, with the context, Pittsburgh plays basically, 8 games that are incredibly tough. And all but Cleveland's a playoff team in the next, 8 games for them. So I really think that I think Pittsburgh specifically is a team that could lose their positioning to Cincinnati. You lose twice to them, you lose 2 games, and I really think Cincinnati's not out at all. They're the number 9 seed right now. That's absolutely striking distance to make the number 7 seed in the AFC playoff picture.
They just can't stop a nosebleed. I agree with you. There's an opportunity there, but they just
Sure.
can't. They can't stop anybody.
Yeah. Well, it starts Monday Night Football next week. They play at the LA Chargers, and that's a huge game. Herbert against Burrow. Like, that'll be really, really fun. And
That's going to be a good one.
I don't know. Anything could happen, man. I just don't count out Cincinnati is what I'm saying. I'm kind of warning maybe I'm a Steelers fan. I'm worried for my team, but cautionary tale. Like, I think Cincinnati's out there and they're like a hungry shark that could strike at any moment.
They are. Like you said, they're never out of a game just because they can score so many points offensively.
Let's talk about we've really heavily covered this player specifically a lot. But we got to do it again. We saw this past weekend the New England Patriots beat the Chicago Bears 19-3.
I have to go.
You gotta leave. You're too. Well, I want you to go off on a rant. So again, Patriots beat Chicago 19-3. Can I just go on a rant here for a second? I thought that
the floor is yours.
When Caleb Williams lost to Jaden Daniels, it wasn't great. But I think you could argue after the game, well, Caleb Williams, they got a touchdown late. They had a position. They had a late lead, and a Hail Mary lost them the game. And even though Jaden Daniels looks better, or you can make an argument if you really want to, well, Jaden Daniels got better organizational support, better, offensive coordinator, better play calling. Like, it makes sense that Jaden Daniels is better looking than Caleb Williams. Like, you could make that argument, and I thought it made sense. So that was one thing. Losing head-to-head to Drake May and looking as far behind Drake May as he did is a far worse loss for Caleb Williams than losing head-to-head in Jaden Daniels, because now you don't have all the arguments you could make against him. You didn't have a late fourth quarter touchdown that gave him a lead. You didn't have, the other team just has a way better offensive coordinator. It's not the same level of organizational support. Like, you can't even make excuses for this one. This is just Drake May far outshining Caleb Williams, in my opinion. And we've covered it a lot. We've talked about how Caleb Williams is holding onto the ball way too long. He's just missing throws into tight windows downfield. It's really frustrating, but I don't know who to put the blame on right now with Caleb Williams. Is it him? Is it the offensive coordinator? Are the Chicago Bears just cursed? Why is it I've watched them draft so many quarterbacks in my lifetime and watched it fail horribly like so many times? And is this a failure? Is there time to save Caleb Williams? Because right now, he looks awful. I mean, he really looks so bad. And I've been trying. I've been really patient. I've almost even been an apologist for Caleb Williams at times. But I'm at the point now where it's like, no, the sky really is falling. This is really, really concerning. And heads have to roll. You got to get rid of Eddie Eberflus. You got to get rid of Shane Waldron. You have to make changes because you cannot waste another rookie quarterback and the young career of a first-round quarterback in Chicago. What say you, Nathan?
Wow. Where do I get started? There's so many things going wrong in Chicago, but the biggest one is just the offensive staff, top to bottom. Nobody is blameless, from the players to the coaches. The biggest problem being a desynchronization of the entire offense, and I alluded to it last week. But when you have receivers running routes at the wrong depth, or not getting to where they need to be on time, or Caleb needing you to be there and you're not there, so he comes off it, and then his next read isn't there, and then now he's holding on to it too long and taking really, really bad sacks, right? We've talked about it twice already. Sometimes the best throw, or sometimes the best play, is throwing the ball away. But there's no consistency, and there's no high level of effort on the offensive side of the football. I know the offensive line is basically a rotisserie chicken right now. Things are falling off the bone. Nobody's healthy. At the end of the day, there's just not consistency, and it doesn't seem like the coaching is coming through. Guys aren't where they need to be when they need to be there, and Caleb, when they are there, isn't delivering the football. So again, I don't think it is – nobody to me is blameless, but the way you have to fix that with the way Caleb is currently looking at close to 50% completion percentage on most of his games, struggling to get his feet set, struggling to deliver the ball, see the right read, that's coaching. That's getting your guys set up for success. I don't know what the solution is to fix it. Again, we know that Caleb was inaccurate. He was wild. He wasn't amazing from the pocket in college. But at the same time, we all consensusly agreed that he had enough talent to be able to peel those things back in. And let's be clear, he knows what a good offense looks like. He's played for Lincoln Riley for a number of years. He sees what Cliff Kingsbury has put together for Jaden Daniels. So he knows what a good offense looks like. And by the responses of all the guys in the locker room when they're talking about Eberflus, talking about the offensive staff, you can tell that the locker room has been lost. And to me, you fire when the locker room has been lost, not just because, people are struggling and things aren't quite going right and we got to find our groove, right? Everybody wanted Sirianni fired, but things are starting to trend upward for them. Like, that's not when you go and fire somebody when things aren't going right. You fire them when the locker room has clearly been lost. To me, the locker room has been lost. There's no faith in Eberflus. There's no faith in Waldron. And that, to me, is why the heads have to roll. Not because the offensive production, which is a byproduct to me of a lack of buy-in, but because there's no faith in the staff. No faith in staff equals no buy-in. No buy-in equals inconsistent results. Inconsistent results leads to everybody looking terrible at their job.
Yeah. I want to make this very clear. I haven't lost confidence in Caleb Williams' ability to turn his career around.
Neither have I. Look at Bryce Young. Don't look now. 2-game win streak. Don't look now, but 2-game win streak for the Panthers.
Look at Sam Darnold. Look at, I don't know. It's really hard to put this on a rookie quarterback who's, I think, often done the things he can right. Like, he's missed throws, but he's also, even at times, we've talked about it, like the ball's going to the right location even sometimes. It's just often late or it's inaccurate. It's like, he's coming along slower than I'd like, but he's got an understanding of what they're trying to do, even if it's not working perfectly.
Yeah. And again, like, we saw what 6 months of Justin Fields getting better coaching look like. Yeah. Turnovers came down, decision making, and having a better idea of where to go with the ball. Those kinds of things, again, that's where coaching comes through.
When he got sacked 9 times in this game, some of that's his fault, holding the ball too long.
I would say 7 or 8 of those are honestly on him. Yeah. But part of that is also not a lot of dudes are open downfield. Like, you're right, and this is my Waldron beef. Like, you've got dudes running into the same area. You've got spacing. You've got 2 guys being able to cover 4 because of your route concepts. You're setting up your man and zone beaters, right? But none of them work off each other. So if it is man, what's he looking at? Okay, well, why is he looking at the zone side? And then now he's got to go back to man, and his man has already passed the window, and now he's not open. It's not good.
It's an abject failure, in my opinion. I want to be very clear here, though. We've talked about Chicago. Drake May deserves a conversation.
He does.
We can't have this whole conversation and just forget about him. I want to speak to Patriots fans real quick. I would imagine they want to hear me say I was wrong about Drake May, because we were very, like, going into the year, very concerned, like, he should sit all year. I think if you go back and track what we've said all along, like, after his first start, we went, oh, wow, he looks really good, and it's going better than I thought. So I think I've evolved as the situation requires that. But in college, I thought his footwork wasn't very good. He was kind of struggling with, like, very basic fundamentals. You got to wonder, is this kind of like Justin Herbert, where you're in college, got a lot of stuff going on. Now you're a pro, your whole focus is football. Maybe that helps. Maybe you're getting better coaching. But Drake May's coming along really, really well. And I thought I reacted properly after his first game and going, whoa, he's way more talented than Jacoby Brissett. He's way better than we ever saw Mac Jones play, like, from a physical standpoint.
Yeah.
But even the direct comparison to Caleb Williams, like, yo, this kid can play. And I really like what's going on. And the thing I was wrong about was I thought he had to sit all year. I thought they had to protect him maybe from this offensive line. But it's just proven to not be true. He's coming along really, really well and making some good throws and doing some good stuff. It's not all perfect, but I can't imagine a Patriots fan right now who doesn't feel excited about the future with Drake May, because he looks to be a hit actually at quarterback, and that's really cool.
Yeah, the physical tools are showing big time for Drake May with his arm talent, with his ability to escape the pocket. And what I love is he climbs the pocket. What we see a lot from Caleb Williams, he's trying to exit out the back, or he's trying to spin out to the side. Drake May, like, he'll step up. I love I wouldn't call it maturity, but what he has shown in his maneuverability of the pocket before he decides to take off. Obviously, the arm talent's there. There's not a lot, offensively to really help him out. But I heard somebody make a great point. This is probably going to be the worst collection of talent that he plays with. Provided that in the offseason, without Bill Belichick as your general manager, you're able to bring in some offensive weapons, shore up what's already a solid defense. Like, there's a lot of potential here. I thought Van Pelt's done a great job with him, the offensive coordinator, in terms of giving him plays that he can complete, but as well as also asking him to go through those full field reads. So they're not just trying to dumb it down for him. They're actually trying to grow him. And I know that Brissett's doing a great job in his ear, keeping him positive. And the dude just gets up. he gets hit and he keeps getting up, and I want him to take less hits. But man, when you see your quarterback out there fighting for yards, throwing the shoulder down and getting up, the stuff that we've seen from Baker Mayfield over the years, that earns respect in the locker room, man.
I don't know that they can find another Penei Sewell in the draft, because Penei Sewell is frankly a Hall of Famer. When I watch the Lions every week, I'm like, man, they've really built an offense around this guy's ability to move bodies. You watch they run the ball away from Penei Sewell in Detroit, and he's paving the way. They pull him in front of the play, so Penei Sewell is 101. But if they can get a tackle even half as good as Penei Sewell in the draft in the first round next year, that they can really build an offense around in some type of way, kind of like what Detroit is doing, where they can use him in the running game, use him to pull in front of stuff like that. That would be great for the Patriots. And then try to find a receiver in the second or third, or maybe a couple. I don't think you spend your first round pick on a receiver. I know that receiver talent is really sexy, but go get a great tackle. It's going to make a huge difference with this offensive line. And really, look, I know, again, Penei Sewell is not replicable, but a player like that, they're that away from having, I think, a really dynamic running game. And you can get maybe a good receiver in the second round. Something like that would be really interesting for the Patriots. I'm excited about them. And you mentioned this. I don't mean to go back to Caleb Williams, but Caleb Williams, when you watch him, I mentioned Johnny Manziel last week when I talked about him. Mm-hmm. It's a similar struggle to adjust to the NFL that Johnny Manziel had, where he's trying to do things that at this level, you're not going to get away with. You got to stop playing so loose and free. You got to play like Drake May is playing from within the pocket, stepping up and sliding rather than just trying to run and extend plays and outrun everybody to the sideline. Caleb Williams seems to be having a hard time adjusting to the speed of the NFL, and the things he got away with at USC just simply are not possible in the NFL game.
Can't get away with it. I do want to quickly go back to Drake May, because I just had a light bulb go off in my head. There's a particular player that helped a less than accurate, very athletic quarterback grow into their QB1-ness, and that is Stephon Diggs. He signed a revised 1-year contract with the Houston Texans. Next year, he's going to be available. Is he coming off an ACL injury? Yes. But if I am the New England Patriots, I'm looking at Stephon Diggs, a veteran guy, to get in there and be the dynamic weapon for my quarterback. I think that Keyshawn Boot's great over the top. I think Tyquan Thornton, thank you for that. I think Tyquan Thornton can help take the lid off. And if you have a guy like Stephon Diggs, I think, and you still got Demario Douglas, you've still got Ramondre Stevenson, I think this offense becomes very, very interesting. So like you said, let's get ourselves, a tackle, a guard, it's something to shore up our offensive line, but then also look at getting a guy like Stephon Diggs, who's going to be pretty inexpensive. He might not have to pay anything more than, 13, 14 million after this ACL injury. It's going to be a big pay cut for Stephon Diggs, and maybe he doesn't take that. But it could be interesting.
Here's maybe the angle here. If I'm Stephon Diggs, who's going to want me? I would imagine the teams vying for Stephon Diggs are going to be the Patriots are going to have to come with a strong offer, probably pay more than other teams are going to have to. I think it's a good fit for them. So, but I think New England's going to have to pay more than like a Kansas City would for Stephon Diggs. If I'm Kansas City, I'm definitely offering Stephon Diggs. Why not? Maybe you can just say, we'll pay you less money. You get to play with Mahomes and compete for a Super Bowl. Another team that's in the conversation probably for Stephon Diggs is going to be Washington with Jaden Daniels. So Washington, Kansas City, the Patriots have to be a player in the Stephon Diggs market, but I think they're going to have to pay a little more. And that makes sense, by the way. Like, they've got salary cap space to do that. They should go pursue a receiver like that. And I think you're right. That'd be an incredible fit and a need for them. But they get a tackle in the first round. They sign a receiver like Stephon Diggs and maybe get another guy in the second or third round. And suddenly you've got a totally transformed Patriots offense compared to what you have right now.
Yeah, it's kind of exactly what the Texans did a couple of years ago. Yeah, obviously once I hired DeMeco Ryans, you just make a few adjustments here and there, and then all of a sudden you've got the right quarterback and things look great.
What about Green Bay with Stephon Diggs as well? Like that, that's another team. You don't think so?
He doesn't
want to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't fit their culture. And honestly, he probably doesn't fit Kansas City's culture either. What you need is a team that doesn't have a wide receiver one at all and doesn't have a spread the ball around culture. Like, it's got to be, hey, I'm coming here and I need 12 targets a game.
He would get exactly that in New England, I would imagine.
Right, and the knowledge that he could pass down to some of the younger guys. He's not a great teammate, or hasn't been a great teammate in terms of wanting the football, but guys in the locker room love him for the friendliness and the competitiveness that he brings.
I've always hated that narrative about him, though, that he's a locker room cancer. Like, no, he's competitive. He
No.
wants to win. He wants the football. Like when I was a quarterback, I always understood. Of course, like Jeremiah, who I played with, I think like of
Yeah.
course Jeremiah wants the football. Like that's not him being dramatic. That's him saying like, I'm a dog. Do you want to win or not? Like,
Right.
This is why I think it seemed like Kansas City could convince him to come in and say, look, it's going to be different than you've ever had before, but that's the role. We're going to compete for a Super
Want
Bowl.
a Super Bowl? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it seemed like Kansas City could convince Stephon Diggs to fall in line, whereas New England, the expectation would be very different. I think the market, though, for Stephon Diggs, I know we kind of stumbled onto this topic, but it's kind of interesting because it's probably Kansas City. I think Washington should make a move to say, look, we got Jaden Daniels. You want the football. You want to have fun. The Patriots should. Who else, though? A Denver, maybe? Does Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, would that be attractive? I don't think Jacksonville is in the market because they've already got Brian Thomas Jr., and they need a coach. They got a lot to prove, but that's a quarterback who you might want to play with. I think it's really far fewer teams than you think. What about the Chargers in LA with Herbert and could they be in the market for Stephon Diggs? I don't know that he fits the Jim Harbaugh personality, but certainly he would love living in LA. What are your thoughts as far as fit for Stephon Diggs? I know we stumbled onto this, but
yeah. I'd have to think about a few more teams. I don't think LA, Chargers, or Rams is the right fit for him.
Yeah.
They've already got Lab McConkey, who are asking to do similar things to what Stephon Diggs would do. I'm not saying that those two are the same player by any means.
Sure.
Stephon Diggs, obviously a little bit more elite, but he wouldn't really fit there. I think Dallas would be an interesting spot. You pair him up with CD Lamb, you get Dak back healthy. All of a sudden, that could be pretty dangerous. And honestly, he could, stay in Houston, right? He doesn't have to go anywhere. Another interesting team, I would anticipate T. Higgins, perhaps leaving Cincinnati. That could be an interesting place.
But I think it seemed like the Patriots would give him the most money. I would think a team like that doesn't have an number one receiver at all.
It's a very clean fit. It's a very clean, crisp fit, I think, for him.
This past weekend, the Arizona Cardinals beat the Jets 31-6. I gotta say, I love it. The Jets are 3-7. They fire Robert Saleh. Suddenly, their defense is a disaster as well.
They're giving up the most yards per play right now since firing Saleh.
By the way, their offense looks incredible, doesn't it? They solved all their problems by firing. The offense now has made a total 180, right?
Oh my goodness!
I
don't even know.
They got rid of Mike Williams and they brought in Devontae Adams. It's just they're all singing "Kumbaya" on that Jets offense. I don't know much to add there. I just think it's funny. I think it's really funny to watch the Jets fall farther and farther out of contention and struggle more and more with their super likable quarterback. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add. Breece Hall only had 10 carries. But I do want to say Cardinals, again, Cardinals are looking very strong. They've already surpassed the win total I think I gave them to start this year. Coaching is showing. The defense played great. Like this offense from the Jets is still a very good offense. Now, granted, it's not maybe calling plays how they should, or their offense might be a little bit outdated, whatever media narrative, blah, 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 right? But the Cardinals came out to play. This was a home game, and they showed that they meant serious business. Kyler Murray, I thought, looked great, 22 of 24 with a touchdown. James Conner was doing what he wanted on the ground. Trey Benson as well. Emari Decardo, like their whole running back core was getting yards. And I mean, if you can have that kind of complement on offense, a balanced run game, and you got Kyler Murray making great decisions with the football, that's going to be a really, really good football team.
Here are the final 7 games for Arizona: Seattle, Minnesota, Seattle again, Patriots, Panthers, Rams, 49ers. A lot of in-division games.
Yep.
Man, the Rams are
some winnable games.
The Arizona Cardinals are 6-4. They're the sole number 1 team in the NFC West, and that could stay the way it is. It's very possible this team wins the division outright and makes a playoff appearance, and that would be what a success that would be. And we haven't even talked about this yet, but I thought Kyler Murray had an unbelievable game against the Jets. He was 22 for 24 passing, 266 yards, 3 total touchdowns. He threw 1. He ran for 2.
Yep.
Kyler was like unbelievable.
That's the best I've seen him look all year. That was the best I've seen him look all year.
But this is the second time, by the way, he's had a really good game. And isn't this like right around the time Call of Duty comes out? And it's like Call of Duty XP weekend or whatever. Like,
double XP.
Like he can't. I think this was the weekend he was supposed to like fall off a cliff, right? With the double XP weekend.
Yeah, the past 2 weekends he was supposed to have fallen apart.
And he's been great, dude. I love him beating that narrative as well. But just it would be a shame to mention this and make the narrative all about the Jets losing when really the story is, hey, Arizona from when Jonathan Gannon got hired to now has totally transformed this team, and it's really cool. I hope it continues. I don't see why it wouldn't. Seattle's not that intimidating. The Vikings are vulnerable. The Patriots, the Panthers, the Rams, the 49ers, they can win all 7 of their final games. And that's a really cool position. Doesn't mean they will, but they got a bye week coming up, week 11.
Yeah.
And then their final 7 games are all winnable. And they should probably be the favorite, honestly, in most of those as well. So I'm really excited for the Cardinals right now.
Again, you are as good as your record says. That's the NFL standard. I want to add that they beat Miami, Chicago, and the Jets recently.
Yeah.
Miami, Tua's first game back. Miami borderline choked that game to them, if we're being very, very honest here. And obviously you go and you whoop Chicago, you beat the Jets. But you're beating bad teams, and you're beating them convincingly, which is what you're supposed to do, which is why I want to make sure I give them credit. But Minnesota, to me, will be the big litmus test for this team, and will give us a good idea of what kind of strength we're dealing with in Arizona.
I want to talk about 2 things that kind of go hand in hand. Number one, the 49ers beat Tampa 23-20 this past weekend. Mm-hmm. The little thing I want to mention, Christian McCaffrey made his return to the NFL. He had 107 yards from scrimmage, 13 carries for 39 yards. Not a great day on the ground, but sure. Mm-hmm. But then 6 catches for 68 yards. So 107 total yards from scrimmage. He's back. I think at one point I even said he won't play at all the rest of the year. I was skeptical of that given what was going on. So not like the best return ever, but certainly McCaffrey's back. He's playing, had over 100 yards this week, and we'll kind of track how that affects the 49ers' chances the rest of this year. But let's acknowledge Chris McCaffrey is, in fact, back.
Yeah, and let's be clear also, it's hard to run the football on the Buccaneers. They've got a strong front 7. They got Vita Vea up there packing things in. It can be tough. But yeah, I think overall, it looked like Brock Purdy was a little bit more comfortable, 25 of 36, 353 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a stat line we are used to seeing from Brock Purdy. You'd see that and think that this game was a little more out of hand, that they were whooping the Buccaneers' ass. But the Bucs know how to fight, and Baker Mayfield's out there. He's a warrior. San Francisco, I think things are going to start trending up for them. We start looking at their schedule and what they have left. Yes, a few division games, but they've also got Green Bay and Buffalo and Detroit still. Those are some serious teams, and because you're a playoff team, you want to have your biggest. Like the NFL wants to schedule those matchups in the season, so it's kind of twofold. If you're good, you get more tough games, which is kind of funny. But we'll get to see how much Christian McCaffrey is really making a difference. Again, November 24th against Green Bay, and then that following week against Buffalo. That's a tough 2-week stretch. Both of those games away. We'll see how they react.
49ers Lions is like a really, really fun matchup. I'm honestly not sure what's going to happen there. I know the Lions are probably the favorite to win that game, but I don't count the 49ers out of that matchup either. Mm-hmm. Where I want to drive the conversation next, if I may, is actually to Tampa, who I want to just say this. Tampa has 4 like really, really brutal losses this year. They lost to the Falcons 36-30 in overtime. Then later in the year, they lost by 5, 31-26 to Atlanta again. They lost to Kansas City in overtime, 30-24. They didn't even get the ball in overtime. They just lost to the 49ers, 23-20 on a last-second field goal. Like Tampa's 4-6. They've lost their top 2 receivers, but they could easily be 8-2. They've lost a couple games that are just, I mean, they're like 4
brutal
plays away really from being 8-2 instead of 4-6. And I don't think that's going to be remembered about this Tampa team. How hard they fought, how close some of their losses were, that they really hung toe-to-toe with some of the best teams in football, the Kansas Cities, the 49ers. And I really respect the year that the Tampa Buccaneers have put together in spite of their record. Like they had a play this week where Baker Mayfield's getting like sacked. He's being pulled by his left arm. He ends up throwing the ball with his right arm, for a first down. And you're like,
Nick Bosa trying to drag him down,
man. Yeah, like they have no business being where they are, given the injuries they've had, all the struggles they've been through. I know they're 4-6. That's not good. Like they have a losing record, but I just respect the fight Tampa's brought. And it really, I think, saves some jobs in Tampa because that record is indicative of a team that might fire their coach. And I just don't think you can do that after this year. I think everyone should keep their job and build towards next year in Tampa, as long as they keep fighting the way they have. But I've been impressed despite their record with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, definitely been impressed. You get Mike Evans back here in a couple weeks. Maybe you can right the ship. But again, also with the 49ers here, 3 missed field goals. They're still not great in the red zone. This game could have very well been a blowout. It
should have been.
It should have been a blowout, and it felt like it should have been a blowout. And the fact that it was only 23-20 was weird. So again, let's San Francisco, you just got McCaffrey back. The offense is looking a little bit different. In the next, week or two, I think we'll start to see them maybe finish some drives here and get more points up on the board.
All right. We got to talk about him. We talk about him every week. Kansas City is 9-0. They survived another game. Here's a story this week. Kansas City beat Denver 16-14. Denver got the ball with 5 minutes and 57 seconds left, down 2 points. They put together this long, great drive. They get into field goal range. They kick a field goal with literally 1 second left. And guess what? The Chiefs block it. They block the field goal. They win the game. It was pretty wild. It's a tough loss for Denver, a game where their rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, 22 for 30, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, thought did enough to be in a position to win.
Did more than enough.
And yet somehow Kansas City, once again, they have the craziest, weirdest wins in Kansas City. They're 9-0. They just have every week done just enough, literally, to win games. It's getting absurd, right? I can't imagine.
It is getting absurd.
Like next week, KC plays at Buffalo, and you're like, that surely is their first loss of the year, right? I mean, they've just been so close, and frankly, should have lost so many times this year. It's
right.
I'm waiting for that moment, but if they beat a team like Buffalo, you're like, well, is it ever going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah, it is very special to see Kansas City continue to pull it off, and it's comical at this point, and the fact that we're seeing this happen live. We're like, okay, finally, there's an end to this madness, and then they block the kick.
Well, you made fun of me, dude. I said it's going to be a team like Denver, and I was sitting on my couch, kind of really smug, I was right.
I was finally. I was thinking about all the commenters. I think somebody said, "Wouldn't it be so funny if they did lose to Denver?" And I'm sitting there, it's 14-3. I'm like,
dude, I was sitting on my couch, literally, smug as hell, Zach was right, and then they got blocked, and I was like, "You're kidding me!" Of course, it got blocked. That's just blocked. Their luck, man.
Yeah, and here's the deal: we talked about this last week with Bo Nix. Did they get blown out? Yes, they absolutely did get blown out by the Ravens last week. Yeah. But we felt like he didn't look overwhelmed. It looked like they just ran into a buzzsaw. The offense wasn't really able to get anything going, but it didn't look like he was back there like Caleb Williams, wide-eyed, I don't know where to go. I'm escaping. Oh, my goodness, my life is over. And so this week, against, again, a very good Kansas City defense, he stood in there, stood tall, and he delivered the football. Again, 2 touchdowns, 22 of 30. That's really, really good, especially from a rookie. Obviously, he did enough to win. He set his team up not just with a 58-yard field goal like Detroit had. This was borderline a chip shot field goal, 30 some odd yards. Something that a kicker should be able to get. Yeah. 35 yards. Your kicker should be able to get that up and out without it being blocked. Obviously the operation wasn't handled correctly on that left side of the line, but Bo Nix looked very, very solid, and the defense. Goodness gracious, this Denver Broncos defense is playing lights out, and they have been for the past couple of weeks. I've been thoroughly impressed with the job that Sean Payton has done in just this 2 quick years with Denver. They're going to be not just an easy out, I don't think. They're going to be a good team for the remainder of this year. Between the Chargers and the Broncos, this AFC West all of a sudden got really, really scary for the Chiefs.
Denver's 5-5, but and let's say this for context, maybe Caleb Williams has been not even a top 3 rookie quarterback this year. Bo Nix, it's Jaden Daniels, then Bo Nix, and then Drake May. But Bo Nix has been really good this year and done not perfect, but done a lot of really high level good stuff and made some plays even that you're like, I saw a meme going around where he escapes the sack and reverses field and runs left, and you're like, the meme said if Mahomes did this, you'd see it all over ESPN, but because Bo Nix does it, no one pays attention. Right. It's like, that's not wrong. He's made some really good plays this year. Right. And also been accurate. Also got the ball out on time. He's running the system really well in Denver. Frankly, Bo Nix is running the offense better than Russell Wilson did last year. More effectively, more efficiently.
Much better.
Getting the ball on time. He's a better fit. and he's being really coachable with Sean Payton. So I just think it's a match made in heaven. Sean Payton got his quarterback. I've got no concerns. I know Denver's 5-5, but like it's not about this year at all. It's about building for the future and building for next year. But Denver's in a position where they add a piece or two for next year and win some close games instead of lose them. Like you're talking about a borderline playoff team probably next year in Denver if things go right.
Yep.
And that says a lot about Sean Payton and a lot about Bo Nix.
Yeah. And again, their wins this year, or a couple of them, the Jets, the Raiders, New Orleans, and Carolina.
Yeah.
Not necessarily quality wins, but the fact that they are winning games and figuring out on the fly with this rookie quarterback is good. Love to see it.
We got to mention we're still waiting for confirmation from Dak Prescott. It's reported 2 days ago, Dak Prescott's going to get season-ending surgery on a partially torn hamstring. It's interesting. Like it's all up in the air right now. I don't see any reason for Dak Prescott to come back this year. He's hurt. They're 3-6. They got paid a ton of money. What's more interesting to me, I want to talk about this because I think Dallas is in a really bad spot as an organization. Their quarterback's injured. Again, I don't think it's advisable for him to come back, even if he can theoretically play. Like, what are you gaining by playing and risking getting further hurt for next year? He's 31 years old. I don't know where to go with this, but I'm curious what your thought is about the Dak Prescott injury, the fact that he's probably out for the year. Should he come back, even if he can? I don't think so. What a reaction do you have to what I just said?
I mean, it's tough to really have a clear reaction. I'm not sure, obviously the severity of the hamstring injury, but to me, if he gets that surgery, it feels kind of like a cop-out. And I know that he's a $60 million guy now, and you need him to be healthy. Not this year, because obviously this year is down the toilet, but you need him for the future. I just feel like, again, depending on the severity of the injury, that's just really a cop-out to his team. To sit there and take that surgery. And, obviously you want to take injuries very seriously, but dude, like don't take this 60 million and then go quit on your guys. And I know that he wouldn't be quitting. He'd be trying to get himself better for the future. But goodness gracious, like be in there and fight, man. Like they did against, I believe it was San Francisco, still trying to fight to stay alive, and against Philly, still trying to fight to stay alive. Like I love that out of Dak Prescott, and I get that there's not a lot of things around him. I would hate to see him get this surgery or just to be out for the rest of the year, period, whether it's a surgery or not. But I would understand why that's the case. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just interesting. I didn't expect that take from you because I don't see any reason for him to come back. The year is over. And I think at this point, Dak's career right now is in a point where like, let's think about next year. We're going to have a different coach, almost certainly.
Yeah.
And you cannot afford to go into next August and not be healthy, not be 100% ready to go.
And that's the thing. Like I understand the rationale, but to me as a competitor on that team with Dak Prescott, I'm like, man,
yeah,
you're just gonna hit the Jets on us. You're gonna go to Cabo early, relax. And I know that that's not what Dak Prescott would be doing. He'd be getting rehab to get healthy. But if I'm in that locker room, that's just another reason for me to, turn on the rest of the guys. Like, okay, all right, Dak wants to take the rest of the year off. Cool. I guess we'll all take the rest of the year off. And that would be a sad, what do you want to call it? A sad development in that locker room.
Yeah. Did you see the Michael Parsons quote where he was talking about, do you feel bad for guys like, Mike McCarthy? And he's like, no, I feel bad for guys like Zach Martin who are putting their body on the line. And this is kind of their last shot to make a run. And it's the end of their career. But what was notable about that is it just felt like I don't know if it was an intentional shot at Mike McCarthy. Maybe it was just him trying to support Zach Martin, but it's like, there was no reason to say it the way you did. And it just felt like a team that it sounded like your best leader on defense and maybe a leader of your football team outside of Dak Prescott doesn't believe in your coach anymore. Like he went out of his way to say that. And you're like, oh, like this team doesn't want anything to do with Mike McCarthy anymore. And you see CeeDee Lamb complaining about the curtains and the sun in his eyes and the way they're handling the stadium. And the Cowboys are just unraveling right in front of us. And it's
a circus. It's a circus.
Yeah, it is. And it's disappointing and avoidable. And I have no idea what they do next with head coach, but I think that's the most interesting offseason addition. I don't know, actually, maybe I'm more interested in who the Bears hire, frankly, because I think they've got a shot to be good.
Yeah.
And there's like Dak's career is it is what it is. Caleb Williams' career is yet to be determined. I think could be great with the right coach. So maybe I'm more interested in to see who the Bears hire than the Dallas Cowboys. But I'm just fascinated, like what happens this offseason in Dallas and what kind of decisions are made, because it's going to really impact their future. And it certainly doesn't feel like it's going to be Mike McCarthy.
It does not.
Let's talk about the trade deadline. This is old news, but I want to just mention it. It's, I think, good practice to talk about a couple notable trades that happened at the trade deadline. We already talked about one of them, so let's recap it. Defensive end is Za'Darius Smith got traded from the Browns to Detroit. Detroit got Za'Darius Smith and a 2026 seventh round pick. The Cleveland Browns got a 2025 fifth round pick and a 2026 sixth round pick. What I like about this is we saw Aiden Hutchinson get injured in Detroit. Mm-hmm. This is them filling a need, helping them make a Super Bowl run. It wasn't, I wanted Max Crosby. That I think was kind of unrealistic, but it is exactly what they need, filling a need on the defensive line, getting a defensive end like Za'Darius Smith. I like this move. Did you?
Yeah, and you're adding depth and you're adding a guy who can make an impact immediately. It's not like he has to get, ingratiated into the offense and understand like complexities that a wide receiver that need to. It's D-line, what's your gap, align and assign. Yeah. Right. And he's a guy that when they start steamrolling teams, now you get up a score and a half. Now all of a sudden you're getting after the quarterback and they have more depth to do that. I love that. It's a great addition by the Detroit Lions without overpaying for somebody. And I thought that was a great thing as well. They didn't have to go out and spend, 3 firsts for Max Crosby. That would have given you, I'm not going to say something similar, but yeah, something similar. Depth and a guy who can get after the quarterback. Great pickup.
We also saw on Sunday Night Football, he's kind of like a coach. Like he really, working with James Houston, where they line up at linebacker now, and he's going to kind of line up everywhere. But James Houston was supposed to be a defensive end on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. Someday down the road, you'll theoretically have Aiden Hutchinson, you'll have Josh Pascal, you'll have James Houston, you'll have Za'Darius Smith. You'll have all this talent, and Za'Darius Smith at 32 years old isn't the best version of himself, but certainly can get after the quarterback, but also work as a coach and encourage people and teach, tricks of the trade to make guys like James Houston, who have a lot of potential to be better. And I just think it's a great fit all around for Detroit.
Yeah, I love it for him.
Here's a weird move. I want to get your reaction to this because I don't think it's a good move. It seems wacky to me. The Dallas Cowboys traded for wide receiver Jonathan Mingo from Carolina. So Dallas got Jonathan Mingo and a 7th round pick, and Carolina got a 4th round pick. This is a receiver who's got 12 catches for 121 yards this year. You gave up a 4th round pick to get him, which is more than a lot of other teams gave up for better receivers. What do you make of this move? Is this a crazy move? It seems like a bad Jerry Jones trade. What's your thought on it?
I'm on the fence about this acquisition. I don't think there's no trade that this year that would have saved the Dallas Cowboys. So when you start looking through it with that lens, to me, it makes a little bit more sense. Was the 4th round maybe a little bit spendy? Yeah, but I believe he had over 400, almost 500 yards receiving last year on 40 or 50 some odd catches. So it's not like he can't produce. I just don't think that he helps the team this year, and maybe you overpaid for him a little bit when you start looking at guys like a Mike Williams or a DeAndre Hopkins or some of the other wide receivers that were available, kind of in and around the trade deadline. I do think he's a guy who has a lot of talent, and if you start developing him this year, he gets to spend some time with CeeDee Lamb. He gets to spend some time with Brandon Cooks. Like, he could develop into something very serious. Now, all of a sudden, next year, start of the season, you got Dak back. You could have a more complete wide receiving core. So I'm not going to say that this trade was a complete bust just because I'm looking at it through the lens of there's no trade that would have helped this year. Maybe he develops and, becomes a reliable target next year.
Well, here's maybe a good angle. I saw a lot of people hate on Jerry Jones from this. In fairness to Jerry Jones, right? You gave up a 4th round pick to get Jonathan Mingo. He's 23 years old. He's got 2 years left on his contract. So you got him for under contract through 2026. Think of what receiver you could have drafted in the 4th round next year. And is it really any better than what you got from Jonathan Mingo? Probably not. So you basically just drafted Jonathan Mingo with a 4th round pick. That's not terrible, despite all the criticism it gets for, that's less than other teams gave up for similar receivers. It's like, well, when you view it like you're drafting him rather than trading for him, it's like, it's actually not a terrible move. Like, would you draft Jonathan Mingo in the 4th round? You absolutely would. And so, fair enough, I guess. Does that logic make sense to you?
Yeah, that logic makes sense, and it's kind of like we were talking about. It's not a move for today, and again, like whoever you draft in that fourth round from that wide receiver position, are you going to find somebody better than Mingo, who was, I want to say, a second rounder?
Yep. Yep.
I mean,
Second rounder to Carolina.
so you got a second rounder who was a rookie last year, for a fourth rounder. Not the worst deal, but again, just the whole optics of how Dallas looks right now, it makes it look atrocious.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's a pick you can defend when you look at it. Like, hey, they're drafting Jonathan Mingo in the fourth round, basically.
Arguably, yes.
Cornerback Marshon Lattimore got traded from New Orleans to Washington. He's 28 years old. The Commanders get Marshon Lattimore and a fifth round pick. The Saints get a third round pick, a fourth round pick, and they get their own sixth round pick back, which they got, which Washington had from a previous trade. So, really, the blockbuster headline here is Washington got a really good corner, Marshon Lattimore, to bolster their team to help them make a run.
Mm-hmm.
This is a vote of confidence saying, look, we think we can challenge a team like Detroit down the stretch. We think this gives us an edge and makes a difference. I like this trade a lot from that perspective. You got a defensive head coach who's going to know how to use him. I love everything about this trade. I got no criticism. I really like it. It's an aggressive move to try to position yourself better for a playoff run. And I don't think it's out of the question the Commanders make a Super Bowl run. I know that's maybe insane to say, but you play Detroit really well. Who else in the NFC can really challenge you? Again, I think they could theoretically beat anyone and get to a Super Bowl with Jaden Daniels right now.
Yeah.
And if you catch Detroit sleeping on a bad night, they could even beat Detroit. So I love it. Like I think what we saw on Sunday Night Football, if Washington plays Detroit instead of Houston, Washington beats Jared Goff with 5 interceptions. It doesn't lose that game. So I just think that Washington's a better, they view themselves as a contender, and I don't think they're wrong.
Yeah. I don't think they're a contender. I think they're a playoff team. I continue to talk about depth and personnel, but this is one of those acquisitions that makes you feel a little bit better about their personnel. Provided Marshon Lattimore can stay healthy, he's not the healthiest corner in the world. What that's going to allow Dan Quinn to do is open up his pressure package, right? Like one of the hard things for them to do right now is get consistent pressure on the quarterback. And if they get ahead, 1 or 2 scores like they did against the Pittsburgh Steelers, can you start to get after the quarterback? And when you have a guy like Marshon Lattimore, who's great in single man-to-man coverage, he's a sticky guy. He can eliminate a team's wide receiver 1. He did it to Mike Evans for years, right, when he was with the Saints. That allows Dan Quinn to dial up more pressure and not have to worry about his back end. So you got Sandstro in your corner, you got Marshon Lattimore on the right side, and Saint Juste on the left. I feel pretty good about that. I don't feel amazing, but I feel pretty good. And then you can send guys, to get after the quarterback. So this is 2 strong veteran additions by Dan Quinn. Obviously, Bobby Wagner in the offseason, but then now you get Marshon Lattimore. So now you're bringing in some veterans who have been a part of some great historic defenses to, start helping out your team in more than just on the field play, but development in practices, how to be a pro, how to continue to get better. And that's equally as important.
2 things. I earlier in the show, I corrected you. I felt really bad with Kayshon Boutte. And I said it like under my breath, and I was like, "Oh, I feel like an asshole."
I heard you. I said thank you for that.
I know, but I was like, "Oh, like I just couldn't." It like came out of like deep in my soul. And it's Benjamin St. Just. I've heard, so protecting you from comments.
Thank you.
We've talked about him before. I'm not worried. I know I hate getting criticism for pronunciation. It's like the stupidest thing. It's like, who I'm talking about. But I want to say this.
There's how many players in the NFL?
Yeah, I know. But people are assholes,
Yeah, and I would love to pronounce everybody's name right, and I think that pronouncing names right is important. But goodness gracious, if the one thing, you know what? Let me go on a rant real quick. If the one thing that you are going to do is go on a video, watch it, like the content, maybe not like the content, and the only comment you're going to leave is how to pronounce a name, please find something else to do.
Of not a household name, by the way. Benjamin St. Just is not a household corner in the NFL. Like, that's not a name everyone. It's like,
I don't care. It could. It's not
like you're mispronouncing Patrick Mahomes' name.
We could have said. We could have said Gerard Guff. And if you come into the comments and you say it's pronounced Jack,
it's Gerard Jeff.
Go away. Go away. We're out here. We're out here giving you hours of content. Okay, you slip up once or twice, just move on. Don't be, oh my God, he said something wrong. I got it. Anyways,
I want to say this.
Saint Just.
You look around the NFC, Detroit's clearly the best team. But after that, Minnesota has unimpressed me recently. They barely survived against Jacksonville. They're really kind of showing their colors, I think.
I will say, but Jacksonville's been scaring everybody, though. Let's be clear. Jacksonville's been scaring everybody.
Sure, but they're starting Mac Jones at quarterback. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So Minnesota isn't the juggernaut I think we viewed them as at one point. They're not out of it, but they're certainly not terrifying. After Detroit, is it not Washington the next best team in the NFC? Because what are you scared of? Atlanta, Arizona? It's Arizona, Washington, Green Bay. I'm not convinced. I think Washington probably is the second best team in the NFC behind Detroit. I think they are a Super Bowl contender, just given that fact. They are probably going to be they might be the number 2 seed in the NFC. They might have a bye. I just don't. I know. I guess only the number 1 seed has a bye, so I'm wrong there. But my point is, I think they think they're a contender, and I just don't think they're wrong. I think they are in the hunt for a Super Bowl appearance. Maybe not a victory, but they could very easily be the team that plays Baltimore or Kansas City in the Super Bowl rather than Detroit. If Detroit has a bad game and slips up, I don't think Washington's not a team that. I think Washington is a team that could slide in that spot and take advantage of a bad day from a team like Detroit. So I don't count them out at all.
I think Detroit, Minnesota, and Green Bay are all better and more complete teams than Washington. Not saying it's a massive gap, right? Other than the Lions, I'm not saying it's a massive gap. I also would take the Niners over them, if I'm being completely honest with you. I know the Niners have had their struggles. The Niners are just a bigger, physical, more deep team. I promise you that the Niners are winning that football game.
Okay, but let's line it up. Sam Darnold, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. I think Jaden Daniels is a more competent, more dynamic quarterback than all three of the guys I just listed. I honestly really would take Jaden Daniels in a playoff game in a crucial moment to make the play in the fourth quarter over Sam Darnold, over Brock Purdy, and over Jordan Love. I know it's dramatic, but I honestly feel that way. I think he's the guy to make that play in the fourth quarter rather than Darnold, Purdy, or Love.
He couldn't get the offense going to close out the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the previous to that, right, against the Chicago Bears, offense did nothing again. And if it wasn't for a Hail Mary that should have never been completed, I'm not trying to discredit what Jaden Daniels has done. I'm just saying that I think that there are other teams in the NFC still that are better.
Sure. Let me look up the contract for Marshon Lattimore. Marshon Lattimore contract. Is this a 1-year rental, I wonder? So we'll find out here. He's under contract through 2026. So no. This is a player who is an investment for Washington. Meaning, we saw the Bengals go to the Super Bowl in the second year with Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
You had a couple more pieces in Washington this offseason. So you had stuff on Diggs. You had another pass rusher, for example, or something like that. And I'm just throwing things out there. But you add a piece or two. Washington's right there to make a Joe Burrow level run in the second year of Jaden Daniels' career. I don't know, man. I think they view themselves as future contenders, and I don't think they're wrong.
As future contenders, for sure. But also, Dan Quinn's in there feeding these guys ultimate gas, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make a run this year. If they thought we were going to be bad this year, but you know what I mean? He's made a complete transition. So I think you're right. I think they view themselves as contenders. But again, in the reality, I still think there's probably 4 or 5 teams that are more prepared and better than they are for the big moments.
Let's move along. Wide receiver Mike Williams has been traded from the Jets to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh gets Mike Williams. The Jets get a 5th-round pick. He's 30 years old. He had 1 catch for a touchdown in his first game with the Steelers, the game winner against Washington, actually. I think the trade's already working out. It gives him another threat, downfield and one-on-one coverage alongside George Pickens. It's ideal because the way the offense works out in Pittsburgh, they'll run play action. They want to take shots over the top downfield. Mike Evans is exactly that. I really like kind of the snide remark from Mike Williams. He tagged Redline in his most recent Instagram post, a throwback to Aaron Rodgers throwing him under the bus. And look where Aaron Rodgers is. Look where Mike Williams is. I'm happy for Mike Williams doing well. I like this trade, though. I think it gives Pittsburgh another weapon downfield over the top. It fits the skill set of Russell Wilson. It fits what this offense does. Do you like this trade as much as I do?
Initially, I didn't. I looked at this as, and this is the same way I feel about the Ravens when they acquired Deontay Johnson. I'm like, Zay Flowers and Deontay Johnson do the same thing.
Yeah.
You play out of multiple tight ends and fullback sets. Not a lot of opportunities for Deontay Johnson to be on the field. Do you feel better about him than Nelson Aguilar? Or maybe, anyway, sorry, I'm getting into the wrong trade. But I felt like Mike Williams was duplicative to what George Pickens does. You know, a big man-on-man sideline body, or, you know, over the top, over the middle guy who can make a contested catch. It's going to work. I'm not sure how exactly it's going to look. Who's going to be, again, that boundary receiver more often than not? I'm imagining it's going to be Mike Williams, and they're going to look for opportunities to move George Pickens around a little bit more, whether that's getting him more rests on the sidelines or whether that's allowing him to play out of the slot more, or to, I don't know, just change what he's been doing and ask him to do more. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. But I think we're going to see a few less snaps from guys like Van Jefferson and from guys like Calvin Austin. We'll see. Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson both speedy enough to take the top off. George Pickens and Mike Williams obviously great on the sideline. I think there's some chemistry there. But yeah, I feel like they're duplicative. I think it's going to work. I'm just not sure how it will work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it's going to look like.
I actually, here's what I'll say. Van Jefferson has been really unimpressive this year when you watch Pittsburgh. Like, he hasn't reacted well to zone coverage. He hasn't found spacing like you're supposed to. He hasn't reacted well to the ball in the air. Like, Russell Wilson's given him a couple chances downfield, and he hasn't adjusted in the air. Like, dude, you got to at least make an effort at that ball. For him to like not see it and not adjust his body, you're like, eh. So I think they're not satisfied with what Van Jefferson has brought to the table. And frankly, the way Pittsburgh wants to throw the football is, you know, using play action. You're either throwing a flat route on a chip, on a bootleg, or you're throwing it downfield down the sideline. George Pickens has been their only real target, giving them opportunities down the sideline. Now they have two. You can't just double team George Pickens, because if you do that, you give Mike Williams a good matchup down the other sideline. So I actually think it's even better than you're giving it credit for, which is, is it duplicative? Yes. Does it give them another skill set to George Pickens? But that's actually probably what they need, is another guy who can make plays down the sideline. So you can't just focus all your attention on George Pickens. And I like Mike Williams on like a rookie corner or your number 2 corner.
Yeah,
that's a good matchup, honestly, in a jump ball scenario. So I just think really almost only Pittsburgh specifically, but given how Russell Wilson plays, given the way they run the football, given the types of shots they want to take downfield, Mike Williams specifically fits Pittsburgh better than almost any other team in football, certainly better than he did with the Jets. And so I love this move a lot, actually.
Yeah. I think about Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Right. Again, like, funny enough that he just came from that team, but not that those two do the same thing, but sometimes having two of something doesn't always make it better.
Yeah.
You know, two guys are supposed to be target heavy. Like, it doesn't always work out that way. I'm optimistic, and what you laid out to me makes sense.
Well, I thought it played out
I look forward
exactly
to seeing
that way in the first game, right? The way they beat Washington was Pickens was taken away. They took a shot down the left sideline, touchdown, Mike Williams, 1 catch, but ball game.
Love it.
The Steelers made another move. They traded for a pass rusher, Preston Smith, from Green Bay. The Packers got a 7th round pick. The Steelers got a 31-year-old pass rusher who gives them depth on the defensive line. He actually had a sack against Washington. Like, Preston Smith, again, is kind of very similar to, you know, the Smith brothers in Green Bay. It's another Smith. They're not actually brothers, but Za'Darius Smith is past his prime. So is Preston Smith. But this Steelers defense didn't really need him, and it just gives them more depth. It gives them more protection against an injury, gives them a fresh body to rotate around on the defensive line. It's a scary move because, again, he got a sack. He got Jay Daniels down to the ground. Like, this against a team like Baltimore this week is really good because they can rotate even more on the defensive line and make a move. And it's a quiet, but I think really nice move from the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion.
Yeah, like you said, a very quiet move. And you think about guys on their D-line that have missed time. Not that Preston Smith plays the same position as Cam Hayward, but Cam Hayward has missed time. Alex Highsmith has missed time.
Yeah.
Historically, like, the Steelers defense plays physical. TJ Watt has missed time. So again, adding depth, adding experience, a guy who's played in a great defensive system for most of his career. It's always a bonus to have guys like that.
What did you make of this move? The Rams traded Tre'Davious White, a 29-year-old veteran corner, to the Baltimore Ravens. So the Rams got a 2026 seventh round pick. So basically nothing. And the Ravens get the contract, but also the player, Tre'Davious White. They've got Nate Wiggins. They've got Marlon Humphrey. They've got Brandon Stevens. This is really kind of now their third corner, but it gives them depth and gives them. Nate Wiggins is a rookie. He's gotten beat a couple times. I like this move. I think it gives the Ravens just more insurance in their secondary. What'd you make of this move?
It was a necessary move. Unfortunately, you're getting Trey White off of his ACL injury.
Yeah.
You never want that, right? So what kind of player is he going to be for you? But the bottom line is for the Ravens, Stevens and Wiggins have been atrocious.
Yeah.
And when they haven't been completely atrocious, they've still been bad. Whether that's blown coverages, whether that's getting beat badly, or whether that's just penalties, defensive holding a number of time on both those guys. You get a guy like Trey White or Tre'Davious White in there, and he can support Kyle Hamilton playing in that nickel position. Hopefully, protect that back end a little bit better and allow pressure to get to the quarterback. Again, getting a corner was a necessary move. What version of Trey White we're going to get? Honestly, I don't really know. I know that he had been a healthy scratch for the Rams for at least a game or two, maybe even more. But we'll see what he can do. I have confidence that he's still got a lot of skill and ability. He's a very heady corner. He'll take some gambles on some footballs. He'll leave his guy and go make the play. And that's kind of what you need is you need some opportunistic guys on that defense to help create turnovers. I like the acquisition. Let's just see how it plays out.
It certainly can't hurt them. We talked about the matchups for the Pittsburgh Steelers, for example, which, again, I feel like I'm talking about them a lot, but it's because I become a fan, I become invested. I think I know them more than other teams right now. And like when you play Pittsburgh, I'm sorry, but Nate Wiggins guarding Mike Williams is a bad decision. It's like, hey, I'll take that matchup.
He's going to hang on. He's going to hang on for dear life.
Yeah, he's going to have to pull Mike Williams to the ground. So I just think getting insurance in that division specifically, where you play Jamar Chase, you play like the Browns they're not out of it yet. I mean, they're out of it for the season, but they still are competitive. They still can beat you. But you're playing Pittsburgh and Cincinnati specifically, and they've got some receiver talent. Giving yourself more insurance at corner is always good in that division, and especially for a team like Baltimore, I think has a shot to win a Super Bowl. You can't be as weak as they've been at corner. No. I'm curious, man. I look around the AFC. I don't know what to expect when Baltimore plays Kansas City at some point this year. I know Kansas City survived a lot of ugly games, but they also seem to play up to the level of whatever team they're playing. I don't know if it's going to be just a blowout where the Ravens absolutely annihilate Kansas City, or more likely Kansas City plays them really close and maybe even wins. Like it really feels like it could go either way, because on paper the Ravens are like really talented and really good, but I just think Kansas City has this knack for showing up in big moments, and they have all year just played right exactly and made enough plays to be competitive and be 9-0. I just don't know what to expect from that matchup. That's inevitable.
Yeah, the thing that makes it hard to beat Kansas City is their D-line is sticky, right? They're solid at stopping the run with Chris Jones up front, but when they rush the passer, they get you. That's one of the things that has made it tough for Lamar Jackson in this matchup is he's unable to do what he did against the Bengals last week. And then the week before, I can't remember who against, where he's just, backpedaling, doing the things we're telling Caleb Williams not to do, right? Like backpedaling, juking guys out and just extending plays massively. Kansas City gets you and gets you down. They have much more discipline in terms of their rush lanes, which makes it more difficult for Lamar. Now, again, he's still going to make great plays that break your back, but Kansas City has been able to eliminate how big those backbreaking plays are, which is why they stay in the game. And then, when Lamar has to throw it away and he's scrambling around and using a lot of energy, there starts to be visible frustration when the plays aren't made. When you make the play, it's like, oh my gosh, how did he do that? But when he misses the play, you're like Lamar, like, what are you doing, bro? Come on. And I think that's where the boogeyman exists. It will be a very interesting matchup. Kansas City might have Hollywood Brown back. They're going to have Isaiah Pacheco back. They're going to have Juju Smith-Schuster healthy. They're going to have DeAndre Hopkins. So their offense is going to look a little bit different too. And it'll be a really fun matchup.
Can we shift to college football? I've got one game I want to talk about.
Yes, the University of Oregon did indeed beat Maryland. It was an ugly game, but we were a better team and we just whooped their ass.
we could mention Miami lost to Georgia Tech, although that's not what I'm getting at. I'm sure you enjoyed that one.
Miami is Cam Ward away from being like Owen whatever.
Yeah. And Alabama beat LSU, but it wasn't close. It wasn't fun, that game. So I don't really. The only conversation you can really have at LSU right now is like whether it's worth keeping Brian Kelly after this year or not. The game. Yeah, go ahead.
Just saying with Brian Kelly, just his defense, he is still somehow unable to put together a good defense. I don't get it.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I thought Alabama LSU was going to be like a legendary, really close game. It's a night game at LSU. It wasn't. So I don't think it's worth really mentioning. But the game I want to talk about actually is Ole Miss beat Georgia 28-10. It was Georgia, the number 3 ranked team in the country, Ole Miss number 16. I've always said, throughout the year, I thought Ole Miss and LSU were both the teams that were going to hang around, and LSU ended up being, they're 6-3 now, but Ole Miss is really hanging around, and they're really good. They're 8-2, and I've been really impressed with Ole Miss at a lot of moments. But this was really the game that I thought they flexed their offensive muscles, where Ole Miss had better play calling, better play design, and a better quarterback. The offensive side of the football, top to bottom, looked way better from Ole Miss than Georgia. And one observation from this game is just the way NIL has impacted college football from a broad level, where we're just seeing way more competitiveness. It seems like anyone can beat anyone right now. And I don't know if that's NIL. I don't know if that's the college football play of expanding teams knowing they're going to get a shot even if they lose a game or two. But I feel like we've seen really crazy upsets in a lot of competitive games this year, especially in the SEC. But to me, looking at Georgia and Ohio State both have a similar problem where they've got a quarterback that just isn't going to set the world on fire. I'm not impressed with Carson Beck. I'm not impressed.
It's not only that he won't set the world on fire. It's that he's not very good.
No. I think Will Howard's better than Carson Beck.
And not by very much.
But again, it's a problem. Like, if Georgia had Cam Ward, if Ohio State had Cam Ward, they would be obvious number 1 team in the country, probably going to win a national title. Georgia should be that, and they're not because of their quarterback. Ohio State should be that, but they're not because of their quarterback. Like, I watched that Penn State game. It's like Will Howard didn't want to beat Penn State. He fumbles on the goal line. He throws a pick six. He's got the receiver wide open down the right sideline and misses him wide open for a touchdown. And it's the same thing here with Carson Beck. Some of it's play calling, but they're like throwing screen passes on 3rd and 4. Like, they do not trust Carson Beck to throw the ball downfield. And it's weird to me. So I don't have much more to add than that. I kind of went through my list of notes, but just the striking difference between offensive ineptitude or between offensive capability, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
Ole Miss had a way better quarterback and way better play calling. And that's alarming for a Georgia team that I think has a shot at a national title, but my concerns are growing the more and more I watch Carson Beck play.
Yeah, no more Ladd McConkey, no more Brock Bowers. All of a sudden, it's a little bit tougher to complete those passes. He's having his worst year statistically. He's got 12 double-digit interceptions already. He only had 6 last year, so clearly I don't think the offensive firepower is there, maybe to support it. That offense to me just looks like they're reeling. Any given day they can come out and score points just because they're big and physical. But like you said, NIL has made a wealth of talent across those what were like second tier teams in the big conferences. And having that talent, not only is you're too deep, not very deep, but they're too deep, got a little bit deeper, and these games are going to be more competitive. So I honestly thought the rich were going to get richer with NIL, but I'm starting to see that the wealth has actually been spread out quite a bit. It's amazing how many big money donors are from these schools that all of a sudden are like, oh yeah, like I want to go, like I can pay for this guy to come play for my school that hasn't won the Natty yet. Like I'm going to go do that. It's crazy.
I remember years of specifically Alabama and Georgia just hoarding so much talent. And you're like, dude, they just reload. A guy gets hurt and they got 3 more guys ready to go. But now you're seeing teams like Tennessee, teams like Ole Miss, teams like, I know LSU 6-3, but they're right there. A&M, like teams that are fighting, and really the margins are so much thinner between an Alabama. I know Nick Saban left, but I think that's part of why Nick Saban left. Nick Saban read the tea leaves and was like, I had a good run. I can't do what I did for so long. I'm just gonna peace out. I'm good. It just, there is the inequality between the top and the bottom is just not what it used to be.
Not at all.
And to credit Ole Miss here, Jackson Dart played really well. He made a couple big time throws on third down. He moved really well within the pocket. He had a play that is so silly, like it doesn't look like much, but he stepped up in the pocket, found a swing route to the left, and threw a first down. And you're like, that's actually like not sexy, but an incredible play from a quarterback, stepping up in the pocket, finding his check down. Like that's exactly what you need to do. And that's what Carson Beck didn't do in this game, handling wet conditions. And then the other thing that comes to mind, Georgia did not generate almost any pressure on Jackson Dart, or so it felt like. There were so many times he's in a really clean pocket. Carson Beck was under pressure almost all game long. And that also makes a difference, man. So I just think the gap between Georgia and everyone else really, really got smaller. In fact, if there even is a gap anymore. And that's, I don't know what's going to happen in the 12-team college football. Like I would have thought Georgia was going to just dominate everyone, and that just is not the case. And the talent gap isn't there. I don't know who's going to win the national title, to be honest. It really feels like anyone's championship to win. And that's a very good thing, in my opinion, for college football. It makes TV and these playoff games really, really entertaining and exciting for me.
I wonder who could win it all. Nobody knows. Can we
look ahead? Can we end this show by looking ahead to next week?
Yeah, let's look ahead. There's honestly next week, very good slate, in my opinion.
Why? I think we talk about inequality. There's some really good games, and then there's nothing. There's like a couple great games, and then not much else. You got college football week 12, NFL week 11. Here's what my Saturday is going to look like. I've really started adopting I've learned I can't watch 3 games back to back. I need like a siesta. I need a little break. I'm taking inspiration from Spanish culture, and I tend to watch a game, maybe 2 depending, but then take a nap and either start the last game late, or this Saturday is perfect because at 9 a.m. I've got number 23 Clemson at number 18 Pitt. Both are 7-2. That's at 9 a.m. The middle, like the noon games, aren't that great. And then at 4:30 p.m. West Coast time, you got number 7 Tennessee, who's 8-1, at number 3 Georgia, who's 7-2. Georgia coming off of a loss. Hard to imagine them coming out flat against Tennessee. So I'll watch my 9 a.m. game. I'll take a mental break. I'll take a nap. Then I'll wake up and watch my 4:30 game. Perfect Saturday for Zach. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, Kirby might have a Nico in a blender.
I mean, man, it's just, I don't expect.
But also the Tennessee defense is very good. So we'll see.
I think Tennessee's got a better quarterback than Georgia in this game. I know Georgia's coming off a loss. It's hard to expect them to lose 2 games in a row, but they do feel vulnerable to that, which is unbelievable to say, but it is honestly how I feel. In the NFL this week on Thursday Night Football, we got a great game. We've got the Washington Commanders at Philly. Dude, we had a great Thursday night game last week. We got another one this week. It's like, oh yes, I can't wait, dude.
At least I hope it lives up to the billing. I really do.
Why wouldn't it? Like, what could go wrong?
It's a Thursday night game. Sometimes you never know.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the only reason. Guys off a short week. Commanders just had to play a tough game. Eagles more so blew out their opponent, but still it's going to be a Thursday night game. I just hope it's going to be hard to beat the Bengals Ravens. I just need to score in the 20s. That's all. But if you give me like what the Broncos and Kansas City had, like 14-15, I don't want to see that. Score points, guys.
Here's my biggest fear. I don't think there's a world where Washington comes out flat. Like I don't think Philly wins by 20 points. Do you?
I think it's very plausible that Philly wins by 20 points.
I don't want to hear that, man. I want a good game. I want it to be not know.
Again, I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm saying it's possible.
Yeah. On Sunday, this is not a primetime game, but I'm certainly going to be watching for many reasons. Some obvious, some not. Ravens at Steelers is an incredible game. It's going to be a huge match.
It's going to be such a huge game.
I don't I don't know if the Steelers are going to win. It's a huge test for them to kind of find out. They're 7-2, but they've beat a lot of nobodies. And like their really only legit good win is against Washington, who I think some people are still suspect of as well. So, man, they have to show us something against Baltimore. What's probably going to happen is Baltimore's going to win and kind of convince everyone, that 7-2 isn't as strong as we thought. What say you?
Man, I mean, I can't put anything past the Ravens defense right now. So this could be the chance where the Steelers offense, they've scored, 28 and 37 points in the past couple of games. Is this the game where, the offense continues to do well against a kind of struggling Ravens defense? And on the flip side, how special is Lamar Jackson going to be?
Yeah. So that's Sunday morning, 10 a.m., Ravens at Steelers. Then at 1:25 p.m. West Coast time, you've got the 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs at the 8-2 Buffalo Bills. I'm going to have to take my nap after this game because I got to watch both back-to-back and then maybe take a nap before Sunday Night Football. But this game is incredible, right? It's Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, a 9-0 Chiefs team that's barely 9-0 against arguably maybe a better Bills team. I'm not really sure. I don't really know. It's going to be fun to find out between these two teams on Sunday.
Kansas City by 10. Kansas City by 10. They play well in the biggest moments. I know that it's going to be one of those things where the Bills are going to want to try so hard and they're going to out-try themselves. That's all. I hope it's not that. And there's a very real chance that the Bills win this game. But Kansas City continues to rise to the occasion until otherwise noted. I give them the nod.
On Sunday Night Football, we got a really fun one. The 4-6 Bengals at the 6-3 Chargers. Burrow against Justin Herbert. Look, I think the Bengals showed last Thursday they can hang with anyone. Certainly, they can win this football game. I'm not sure they will, but the Bengals are dangerous, and I think it's going to be a really good game. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. Chargers have had a great defensive stand this year. Offensively, they're starting to continue to put things together. They got Quentin Johnson back. Ladd McConkey's starting to find his drive. Obviously, they're running the football well, which is very, very scary for the Bengals in particular if J.K. Dobbins gets loose on you. But yeah, I think it should be a good game. The sleeper game to me is the Lions and the Jags. The Jaguars have been giving people fits the past couple of weeks. And I'm not saying the Jags are going to win. But just something, they're doing something that's frustrating people, and I don't know what it is. Just keep your eye on it, especially after, you had a dud last week. Are they going to follow that up with another dud, being the Lions, or are they going to come out and, right the ship? We'll see.
Another game potentially, maybe like you have it on the multicast, is Colts at Jets. Joe Flacco against Aaron Rodgers. For the simple fact that it's Joe Flacco against his former team. I'll be interested in that outcome for sure.
I'm more interested in Falcons Broncos. That to me is a very, very interesting game. Not a division or conference game, but the fact that you've got the Broncos, kind of this team that may be ascending, maybe they're good, maybe they're not, and you've got the Falcons, a team that has been so incredibly inconsistent this year and struggled against good defenses. What's that result going to be? I'm actually very, very interested in that game.
Molly made fun of me because I looked back at the Germany game this week. I said, the NFL just basically screwed over all the fans of Germany, giving them Giants at Carolina in Germany. Like, what a horrible, that's the two teams you give them to watch. Like, they're excited about anything, but both teams have a bye week this week. So teams of the bye week, Giants, Cardinals, Tampa, and Carolina. What do you make of Monday Night Football? You got the Houston Texans against the Dallas Cowboys, technically a home game for Dallas. I think Nico Collins comes back. That's the storyline that's interesting to me. Yeah. Not going to lie, I don't really care about this game. I guess the storyline to me is, does CJ Stroud play with more decisiveness? Is getting the ball out quicker or more on time rather than holding onto the ball too long? Does Nico Collins come back? The only storyline to me that is interesting is CJ Stroud and his level of play, because I don't give a damn at all about the 3-6 Dallas Cowboys right now.
Agreed. In September, I cared about this game. At this point in the season, I don't. but I'm going to watch it and I'm going to enjoy it because I love football. That's one thing. We might say that some games are good, some games are bad, but man, I just love to sit down and watch and see the chess match play out between two coaches and two teams.
Well, like we watched Monday Night Football tonight, which was Rams and Dolphins, and that game has at this point currently no consequence at all. But it was still a good game, even if like the storyline that comes away from that game is not very interesting or good for the overall national narrative of the NFL season.
Sure.
Anything about? Am I missing anything? Anything else you want to talk about? Looking at next week.
I said it earlier. Panthers 2-game win streak.
Oh my gosh!
Don't hold your breath.
I won't. I actually really won't. Believe it or not.
Neither will I.
I mean, they're also agenda. Not.
I've got no agenda with that.
Bears.
So they have a shot to win this week.
Yeah, they can't lose a bye week.
Can't lose a bye week.
Packers Bears. How long until they fire Matt Eberflus?
I'm pretty sure Ryan Poles said he was safe through this year and next year.
What?
I could be wrong. I swear I saw a tweet or a quote about it. We maybe need to validate that there. But from what I understand is there is no current plans to fire him.
Oh my gosh, dude. Shocking revelation. Yeah. Safe as long as is I don't know.
I think there was some reading between the lines between what Poles and Eberflus was saying. So I don't think he directly came out and said it. Again, I'm not sure, but yikes. Again, another game that in September, I was like, man, this is going to be a great matchup. You got Caleb Williams, you got Jordan Love, but now Jordan Love's a little bit banged up. Hopefully he's healthy off that groin after, the bye week this week. And then I don't even know what is happening in Chicago.
I think Matt Eberflus is a great defensive coordinator.
He has potential to be a great defensive coordinator.
But that's all I'll say. I mean, I really think you gotta. God dang, dude, you can't waste the young career of Caleb Williams with Matt Eberflus as head coach. To me, it's a shame.
Yeah, agreed.
Man, that's all I got today. We're done. It's not quite 10:30. It's a little past that, but we nearly hit our target at a 2-hour show.
We nearly did. Yeah. Man, last thing, just a message of positivity, you guys. Remember that the earth is not crumbling. Reminder to yourselves to go out, get yourself some exercise, get some fresh air, put some healthy things in your body, and just affirm to yourself that you exist in this universe and you have potential to do great things. We all have the opportunity to be consumers or creators. Choose to be a creator. Whatever form of creation that is for you, do that and love it and share it with the world.
I think the way I'll follow that up is by saying, I want to be someone who brings people together, no matter what part of the world you're from, no matter what opinions you have about certain things. I'm very careful in my life to be friends with everyone, no matter what their background is, no matter what their opinions or viewpoints are. I want to be someone who brings people together. And that's the message I want to share today, which is, I think, thinly coded, which is, be someone in your life who brings people together. I think it's a really a message maybe that we need to hear right now. And I try to talk to. I have some of my best friends in the world have backgrounds that are all over the place, and I don't discriminate in any way. And I just try to be welcoming to everyone I possibly can in my life.
Amen, brother.
Man, good job today. I love you, dude.
Thanks. Love you too, big dog. Bop bop boom bing.
Nope.
We're done.
Nope. It's bam. We're done. I looked at you. It was like
we're done.
It was like a game of chicken. Bam. We're done.